A very good evening and welcome to everyone who has joined today for this 40th Wise Views Leadership Conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you're all ready to talk to and interact with our esteemed guest today. Please welcome Mr. Ajay Poddar, who is the founder and MD of Synergy Environics Limited, who has joined us today. Good evening, sir. Most welcome on behalf of everyone.
Thank you. Honored to be here.
We are extremely delighted that we are going to talk about something very, very rarely that we talk about, something very new, and it is solution-oriented concept that we are going to take up today. It is about environics, which is going to help us protect ourselves from harmful radiations. And more about the topic, I'm sure our distinguished guest will be able to take us through. But before that, allow me to introduce Mr. Ajay Poddar. I will share my screen. We're going to talk about environics, applications for health and well-being. The agenda is briefly, the initial 20 minutes or 25 minutes will be a talk delivered by Mr. Ajay Poddar and followed by the Q&A session. We have Mr. Ajay Poddar with us. He is a BTech in Civil Engineering from the prestigious IIT Delhi. He has over 4 decades of experience in running various businesses, especially supply and installation of mechanical multi-level parking systems, manufacturing of pre-stressed concrete products, LPG cylinders, and bottling and marketing of LPG, so on and so forth. He has developed this concept of environics, a radiation management practice for correcting negative natural and man-made radiations and improving the health of people and productivity of organizations. Environics has been implemented in over 2,500 establishments, including airports, refineries, steel and power plants, offices, and homes. He has also invented and successfully led the commercialization of the Enviro chip and Enviro globe, which neutralize the harmful aspect of electromagnetic emissions. He is a founder member of the Indian Green Building Council and chairman of SIDH, an NGO working in the field of education and research at Uttarakhand. Our distinguished speaker has led business delegations to several countries on behalf of various industry organizations and has given talks on health and well-being in more than 15 countries and national forums on diverse subjects including wellness, sustainability, innovation, etc. He published research papers in reputed international journals and articles in all frontline national papers. His book, Empower Yourself, New Life Solutions for Health and Well-being, which is published by Penguin, has been extremely well received. His hobbies include theater, writing poetry and fiction, and also composing music. So with this brief introduction to this distinguished personality who is with us this evening, I would request Mr. Ajay Poddar to start his talk and enlighten us about environics and also take us through the challenges and opportunities, both for entrepreneurs as well as for general public, students, institutions, and everyone around. I once again welcome all of you to this very interesting webinar, and I request now, without much ado, Mr. Ajay Poddar to start off. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Rao, for this introduction. And I'm going to first lay the background as to why Environics is what is the domain in which we are working. So we are actually primarily concerned with the health of individuals and also how to go reach that. Now, I want to make one statement and say that good health is not about successfully treating illness. Good health is a natural state which our body is designed to be in. We can do the screen sharing maybe a little later. Oh, it's okay. If people can see, then that's fine. Yeah. So good health is if we let the body be in rhythm with the environment, with the earth, and if we do the right things, we don't disturb the body's vibratory frequency or resonance. The body is designed to live for 160 years. So if we let the body with reasonable wear and tear, it will live for 160 years. Same thing, if there is a habitat, if there is a house which is designed in resonance with the surroundings, with the way nature is, and taking the earth's energies into consideration, not violating it, its average life will be 200 to 250 years. So uh, this is the premise on which we start. Now, what is the body? The body is a vibratory field. It is an electromagnetic vibratory field, like everything electromagnetic around us. So each organ of us has a vibratory frequency. Our body has a vibratory frequency at which it resonates with various other vibratory frequencies around us. So, how do we? It depends whether we are able to maintain this vibratory frequency, depends on what we do and how we do it. Now, let's take sleep. Now, people normally say it is a doctor will tell you, or somebody will say, for good health, sleep 7 hours is very necessary, or 8 hours is very necessary. According to me, that's not the issue. The issue is how do you sleep and when do you sleep? Now, there is something called REM or deep sleep. Normally, you get about 2.5 hours of deep sleep. Now, if you can enhance that or maintain that, that's enough. Now, in that 2.5 hours, a yogi might get in 5 hours of total sleeping time. A person who is not a yogi will get much later. So, if you sleep, say, 2.5 hours after you've had your last meal, and that meal should not be very heavy, then you would get better sleep. We have melatonin secreted by our brain, which is only done in complete darkness. So if you sleep with a night light or something on, then your melatonin is the only chemical in the body which is secreted, which relaxes the body. A lot of other enzymes and organs are meant to accelerate the body's reactions. This is secreted between 10 o'clock and 3 o'clock in the morning, 10 o'clock at night and 3 o'clock in the morning. Now, if you are a person who's sleeping after midnight, then half the melatonin secretion is not received and you will get edgy, you will not get up feeling fresh and things like that. So that is, I just wanted to give one example just to illustrate. There are many more things, but I'm not going to get into that. Then it's the use of gadgets. We are constantly surrounded by what is called electrosmog. Now, if you have dirty water, you can see it. If you have dirty air, you can see it. But you can't see dirty electricity. Now, that is invisible. And today, what COVID has taught us is that what is invisible is the most dangerous, because you don't know where it comes from, you don't know how to deal with it. There may be various theories and various hypotheses, but we don't know. Now, I want to ask, and somebody can put it in the chat, that have you read about what are the 4 warnings that are given on a cell phone manual, or if you go into the you go into the website of a particular model. So there is RF exposure and there is safety. And what are the 4 things which says? Can anybody put it down, or should I mention those 4 things? So one is text more than you talk, which many of us know. Second is always use hands free, which means a speaker or a earphone. I must warn here that an ear pod is the worst thing that you can do, but because most of the time when we are not speaking on the phone also, we don't put the ear pod off or we don't take it away from our ears. So the transmission and reception continues. The third thing is maximum recommended time per hour 6 minutes. And the fourth is always keep the device 10 to 15 millimeters from your body at any given time. So it's interesting to know that the hand is also the body. So I don't find anybody in this, perhaps there would be a rare one person in this audience who follows all these four things. So if you follow all these four things, then you don't have to worry about it at all. You're doing well. The second is, you would have heard an aircraft warning signal. Warning, there are normally warnings on the aircraft saying, uh, when it's going to take off, kindly switch off your cell phones. And they give a reason also. They say, as it's likely to interfere with the communication system of the aircraft. Now, why should one mobile phone interfere with the communication system of the aircraft? 3 days back, many of you would have read this news that so many flights had to be cancelled because of 5G frequencies disturbing the frequency of this thing. The thing is, an aircraft communication system is about 200 times stronger than our body cellular communication system. So it follows to reason that if your communication system aircraft is disturbed, then our body communication system is also disturbed because of prolonged use. Now, why is it disturbed? Is because the body waves are random. Like if you see an EEG or an ECG, they are not sine waves, they are not systemic waves. Whereas any man-made radiation is systemic. So when the body cells are trying to communicate in a language, if I and you are starting speaking in English and somebody speaks in Arab, we can't carry on and we'll have to shout, which will cause stress. So prolonged use to this kind of an interference with our cellular thing impairs our cellular ability to communicate. So on YouTube, there is a hand test by Rajiv Makhni on NDTV where, a person just you do the hand like this, somebody pushes, it doesn't go down, you hold a cell phone, it goes down with 2 fingers. So it shows to what extent our body, it's not that you lose the strength, but your communication is disturbed. So with this disturbance, what happens is, with stress, our resting heart rate increases. And if our resting heart rate increases for a prolonged period of time, it's like you're on a treadmill all the time. So gradually you lose immunity, and when you lose immunity, you get disease. The second thing that happens is when we sleep. In our bedroom, we have a Wi-Fi TV, we have a Wi-Fi AC, we have all kinds of electrical switches behind our bedside because we want to charge our phones. We have maybe a router somewhere in the nearby room or in the same room. We may have a mobile tower somewhere nearby. So all these are also creating disturbance because our brain is also working when we are sleeping. So it disturbs our sleep, and if you ask any doctor which is the biggest disease in the world, they will say it's sleep disorder because 50% of the people in this world can't sleep well. And this is one of the major contributory reasons. The third reason, so these are two things I've talked about. The third is the earth. How are we resonating? How are we connected to the earth? Why is the earth important for our health? You may ask. Because we are bound by the gravitational force. That is what keeps us connected to the earth, whether we are on the 20th floor or we are on the ground floor. Otherwise, we'd fly, we'd hit the roof. So that is so much stronger. So the earth's frequency, our body mimics the earth's frequencies. So wherever the earth's frequency is disturbed, our body is disturbed. So if you sleep in a zone where the earth's energies are disturbed, your body will also get disturbed, and again the resting heart rate will go up. So if you are sleeping somewhere for 7 hours and your bed is disturbed in a disturbed zone, or you are sitting and working somewhere, then it will again cause stress and again loss of immunity and disease. So one of the earliest scientists called Dr. Hartman, he looked at 500 cases of cancer, and he went to those people, their workplaces and their places of stay, and he found that 499 of them were on what is called a geopathic stress zone, which I'll explain later. And he said that cancer is not a DNA disease, it's a disease of location. And there are 500,000 clinical studies on this. So geopathic stress, geo is earth, pathic is what causes pathos or sadness, and stress, of course, is stress. It inhabits about 20% of the earth's surface. And in our Indian context, we used to earlier call it Bhumi Dosh. So how did we know Bhumi Dosh? We would let cattle or sheep or cows graze the ground, and wherever the animal would not eat the grass, we would avoid those places for building or living. Or we would see how children behave. So animals and children are very sensitive. You put a child to sleep at one place, if he is not comfortable, he will find his own comfort zone because they are listening to their body. So if we listen to our body, we will be all right. So geopathic stresses are caused by concentrated mineral deposits and also underground cavities, so underground water streams and things like that. And also because of certain stress lines, which are called geopathic stress lines. They are also called Hartmann lines because Hartmann was the first scientist who discovered this. So that is one phenomena. The second is we build houses. When we build four walls, we capture energies within those four walls. Now there is an energy play which is going on in the atmosphere. The sun rises in the east or southeast and sets in the west or northwest. So that becomes really the fire zone. So if the fire zone in your house is in consonance with that, you are in consonance with what is happening outside. Secondly, if you remember, our older houses used to have a central courtyard, and our toilets and kitchens and washing areas were always outside the main living areas because it was believed that drains drain away the energies from, like they drain away water, they also drain away energies. So without going more into that, this is the problem statement. But now the thing we discovered is that people, you can't sacrifice technology. In fact, we are going into IoT, we are going into artificial intelligence. So we will use this more and more. So what we did in our research was we looked at a lot of traditional knowledge. Today, the tendency is to say that everything what is traditionally said is superstition. But we must examine it from a scientific standpoint. And we found that a lot of things which are there in our Vedas, which are there in our Shastras, had a context. Now, they may or may not be relevant in today's living condition or context, but we certainly have to examine their merits. And if a certain thing has given benefits for 500 years and so many people, that is the live life which is happening everywhere. You can't discard that data. You can't say that I'm only going to believe what I'm doing an experiment in a lab and what happens with 50 people. So we developed Environics as a practice. You can kindly put on the slide. This is the subject. So when we say Environics, it was a word we didn't know that it was there, and much later it came in Wikipedia. But what we understand why we put the word Environics is it's a scientific process for transforming the natural and human made energies in our environment to ensure that they work for the human benefit. So what we do in the Environics approach is we make a systematic impact assessment in a living area, and this is done with scientific instruments. One of them is called the Lecker antenna, which I'll try to show you. So that you can fix a wavelength or a frequency, and with European research since the 40s, we know about there are about 15 wavelengths of frequencies representing with different phenomena which we survey. We talk to the people, we find what are their pain points, whether it's an industry, whether it is a home, whether it is an office. And normally there is a 50-60% correlation between what they are feeling and what's happening. We check their pulse rates before our work, so we go for a corrective mechanism. So first I will, before going into this more, what we do is we look at we invented some products for the man-made. So one is the EnviroChip, which Dr. Rao spoke about. So EnviroChip is just stuck to the back of the phone like this. I don't know if you guys can see it clearly. And this is another example. This is what what the newest EnviroChip looks like. It has the design of the 5 elements. So what it does is changes the waveform from systemic to random, which is resonant with our human body. And this has been tested by more than by MIT, by AIMS, by Max Healthcare, by Medanta, various clinical trials on hundreds and thousands of people. Plus, we have, when we have practically implemented our work, we have something like 12,000 data points. And so this has now been used by about 5 million users. And without sacrificing, the main thing is it doesn't stop the radiation, it doesn't reduce the emissions, it changes its nature. So without sacrificing the signal strength and the quality, we are able to take care of some of the harmful effects, not the heat effect. So we would still say don't use it on your ear, use earphones, but at least the problem that the interference has. Similarly, we have another product called the Enviro Globe. So this is this only requires charging under the sun or a lamp for 15 minutes once in a week. It's a solar charge thing. And it takes care of 300 square feet of area. So you can put it in a bedroom or a workplace. So you put it in a bedroom, it's been tested at AIMS to see that it's getting better sleep. In a workplace, it will improve your concentration. So these are the two main products. We have another product called a gadget disinfectant. You know, with today, you might have heard that our mobile phone screen is 20 times dirtier than our toilet seat. So if somebody asks you, do you put your toilet seat on your face 2000 times, you would be horrified. But that is exactly what we are doing. So with one spray, the USP of this is with one spray and spreading that with a cloth, you form a nanofilm which kills bacteria for 24 hours. So it's like having a shower, giving your phone a shower a day. So the EnviroChip is like a seatbelt on your phone, like you use in cars. You have to drive cars, but you drive it safely. And this is like giving it a shower. So we are looking at corrective measures. So these are as far as our products go. We are also we are testing an immunity enhancer, which is so far, with the results so far, it is shown to improve the sleep quality by about 8%. So now what do we do for the buildings? For the buildings, what we do is can you go to the next slide, please? We correct the energy. So when we survey, like in an office, we find that, let's say there in this particular office where we are going to show you a layout, there are 150 workstations. So we found that 25 have been affected by geopathic stresses, which means 17% of the total workforce. Affected by electrosmog, which means, of course, every 100% people are affected by electrosmog because everybody is using a mobile or a laptop or a desktop. But people who are near routers, people who are near a mobile tower, so that is 18. And natural energy disturbance, again, so you'll see affected by almost 49% people are being affected. So this is the visual. So the red zones that you see, the dark red, are the natural energy disturbance. It is disturbed because of the various phenomena, and this is checked. It is not in theory, it is checked with the instrument called the Lecker antenna. The red lines which you see crisscrossing north, south, east, west, these are the geopathic stress lines or the Hartmann lines. They always run north, south or east, west at spacings varying between 5 meters and 18 meters. And the blue zones, thicker lines you see are the underground water streams, which may be 50 meters or 20 meters under the earth's surface. We don't know. So these are the things broadly, and then the light orange is the router. So these are the things which are affecting us. Then natural energies, there are some disturbances, and why they are disturbed, I'm not going to get into that. So can we go to the next one, please? And then this is what we do for the correction. So you will see you will see in the yellow zones, the ones which were the routers and which were the light orange zones, we put some chips there on the routers which make the red into the green. And then you will see some other small chips, red, various places which are kept, which are for correcting the geopathic stress and the natural energies and the central disturbances. So we first survey, we check the heart rate, resting heart rate of people. I'll say if there are 50 people, 150 people there, we'll at least check for 50 people. And after the work, we'll again check the resting heart rate of those 50 people. Out of the 12,000 data points we have so far, we find that there's an almost 5% improvement in the resting heart rate. Harvard Medical School says that if there's an improvement of 4% in your heart rate, your healthy life can go up by 7 to 8 years. So this is fairly significant. So the natural energies, what the way we correct it is we survey it, we put these chips, we don't advise any change of location of anything, not even moving a chair. So the way it is, we correct these. We have health questionnaires, or we've done all the refineries in India. So we look at certain machines also which have been affected by these geopathic stresses or natural energies. So we take their breakdown record 6 months before and 6 months later. So this is how we map our work, and this is how we try to see that we make a difference. We've done work on about 2,600 establishments so far. As I told you, we've got data points of about 12,000 data points, and we've got more than 1,000 written testimonials. And all the data of pulse rates we take before and after are signed by people. As I said, we've done clinical research with all the major hospital chains in India on various things. And I think with that, I think I've exceeded my time by 2 to 3 minutes, but I'm happy to answer your questions and
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. That's a very, very interesting talk, followed by your presentation with so many grid lines. So many grid lines and so many zones for us to watch out in terms of harmful radiations that come from electrosmog, natural energy radiations as well. And traditionally, and even now while we are talking, almost all of us are violating these things, and therefore it is startling. It is a very, very important, startling revelation that is happening through your talk. And I, for one, am violating all of it that you mentioned in the initial part of it, including the 4 important warnings that are given at the back of the cell phone for us to follow. I'm violating even that. So I think it is going to be extremely useful because there are corrective measures, there are steps that are taken based on research, and applications are seen across various establishments, more than 2,600 as you mentioned. And I'm sure this is going to be viewed now and watched by all our participants with greater attention and focus, because it's going to be extremely useful for all of us. The fact that you mentioned that human body is actually designed to live for about 150, 160 years if you don't violate these things. Similarly, the houses that are built, which is built in resonance with its surroundings, is meant to survive 200 to 250 years. But yes, when we violate, the life will come down. So is the quality and life of human body will come down. And based on your research, as you mentioned, if there is a 4% improvement in the sleeping heart rate, it results or equivalent of a 7 to 8% of your age improvement. I think that's a fantastic point for us to go by as a riding point as we get into the discussion with questions and answers. So what we'll do is we have 4 clusters of questions, and these questions are collected from various participants. At the time of registration, they keyed in their questions. So we segregated those questions and put in a particular order, which forms into 4 clusters, and 4 clusters take us through a particular structure of a discussion. And all the questions that you have already answered, will be omitted, and those questions which are seeking for fresh answers or explanation will be posed. And I'm sure we are going to have a great conversation starting from now. So allow me to welcome Professor R. Prasad. Professor R. Prasad is my esteemed colleague. He is an alumnus of IIT Bombay and IIM Calcutta. He has 3 decades of experience in corporate world as well as academics. He was also an entrepreneur himself, and he currently is the chief mentor for the online MBA program that we have launched. He is the architect of the program, and he is also the professor and mentor for the program which is currently run. So I request Professor Prasad to start the first cluster for moderating with the question and answer session. Professor Prasad.
Thank you, Professor Rao. I think this being an online MBA program, the impact of what is being discussed is even more. Let me begin. This is a wonderful set of too many revelations, new information. I think, the fact that what is not seen is more dangerous than what is seen also gives us a lot of opportunity to remedy them. So waveforms, that everything that is around us ultimately also have waves around it, electromagnetic fields around it, that there is a resonance, and that there is also dissonance. I think these points are coming out pretty clearly. I'm reminded of my communications class in the technology BTech, and a lot of how you combine waves and then you get 2 new waves. I think all that is getting used very productively in what is being discussed. Sir, we have a lot of questions. So the first question is about you and the enterprise. I mean, the cluster is about that. So the question is that you've started with civil engineering, and then we are now discussing Environics. So can you take us through the journey, the outlook that you had, how you found opportunities in solving problems, and how did you reach the solutions, or how did you reach the opportunity which is related to Environics? This is the first question, sir.
So I'm glad that because I was thinking of covering it in my talk, but because of the time that was there, so I'm glad this question was asked. So I used to, one of my enterprises was, as you've seen in the biodata, is to make LPG cylinders. And it became a BIFR unit, it became sick. And I was told by some people that it is all wrong as per Vastu. Now, Vastu Shastra is the very ancient science of architecture. But at that point of time, I said, as an engineer, I am not ready to buy this, that if you make the southwest higher and the northeast lower and you dig a pit there and you do this and that. So, but I did go to the Sthapatis, a person called Ganpati Sthapati in Tamil Nadu and somebody called Krishna Bhatt in Karnataka. And I sat with them with interpreters for 10 days. And I said, as an engineer, I'm not ready to buy the house of the rective, but the whys. So I must say that they were ready, we were able to explain to me very well the whys of the science. And with that, I understood that the way Vastu is understood today is a fear and fortune thing. It was not what it was meant to be. So it was a whole lifestyle. An architect became an architect after studying the 64 arts and sciences, which were called the 64 Kala in our Shastras. He became an architect when he was 50 years old. He hardly designed 10 houses or 10 structures in their lifetime because there were so many things they studied. So anyway, to cut it short, I found that everything as per the classical concepts of Vastu was wrong in my plant, and I can't demolish my plant. So we found out that what is the nature of the disturbance? How does it disturb? Why does it disturb? And the instrumentation helped with that. So instead of saying that there is a spirit here or there is X, and everything was boiled down to frequencies and wavelengths. And then we found natural materials. In our ancient thing, you say that wherever there is a poisonous plant, there is an aushadhi there also which is growing nearby. So solutions are also found in nature, in natural materials, and we use the resonance of these natural materials with some coding and some programs to see that in a very simple. Of course, it was a journey. So we used some. We made I made myself the first guinea pig. Then I helped some relatives, some friends. Then we trained some people. So it's been a long journey, which started in '89, and we commercialized the practice only in 2007. Before that, we were funding research in universities and talking to people abroad and just having fun.
Excellent, sir. I think you spent a lot of time organizing what is contested as science into based on the protocols which are available today, which is accepted today, and then trying to get solutions from there, and therefore building the science into what seemed like not science. I think that's a wonderful journey, sir. So the next question is a bit specific about the science and innovation behind Environics. I mean, you have a chip. So what is the science behind the chip? What sort of materials are used? How does it come together in order to emit those kind of frequencies that you're looking for?
So what the Envirochip is made of inert passive materials. They actively don't emanate. They are not powered by anything. We call it a chip because it's an accepted jargon. So what we do is that when you fix it on the phone at a particular location which is specified, when the phone is off, this chip is doing nothing. When the phone is on, then the power of the phone, which is emanating these systemic waves in megahertz, and now with 5G you will have it in gigahertz, they activate the terahertz waveforms of the Envirochip, which was so far passive. And this terahertz waveforms become the carrier waves. You would have seen in a sea, a wave is carrying a twig for hundreds of miles without destroying the twig will, from wherever it fell from the tree, in the same form it is translated to the shore. So these become carrier waves, and they carry the wave to your body and to the surroundings in a random form which is friendly to the body. The body doesn't go into the flight or fright mode. So there are combinations of various inert materials, and they are programmed with certain things like a coding, like I told you. But this is broadly the technology.
I think that gives us a pretty good understanding from a very scientific framework, where you've got the carrier wave, which is carrying also the frequencies of that which is emitted by the mobile phone or anything else which is of dangerous radiation, and then combining together to produce an effect which is desirable. Thank you, sir. It sounds far more simpler now as to how this end is achieved. So the third question is, in your vision, how do you see environics being applied in healthcare for the poor and the middle class in India in terms of penetration, adoption?
So we were very clear right in the beginning. I mean, there are obviously another 8, 10 people who approach this in different ways in US here and there. Their websites are also very good. They have also done some testing. But their model is that if they sell 2,000 of such devices in a year, they are okay, because the same thing that we sell for, let's say, $10, they sell it at $150. And it probably costs them the same. So what we sell out of making, selling maybe 1 lakh chips, they would make out of selling 1,000 chips. So our first thing was that we have 2, 3 very simple business principles. Anything that we make should not cost more than 20% of what it sells at. So there is enough money for the trade, and it must be very affordable to the customer. So an Enviro chip today costs 800 rupees, and also there are discounts and things like that. So for a person who's buying a 10,000 or a 20,000 rupee phone also, 800 rupees for a promise of health protection, we have not found a price resistance. In fact, 5 years back when we introduced it, we did a survey on 325 customers. And that time when we had priced it at 500 rupees, the average price which the customer was ready to pay that time was 725. So I think we are targeting, and we also have a CSR program. We are one of the companies, we are a 20 crore company, but we have the sustainability and BRSR. We follow all that, which is only mandatory for a 1,000 crore company. Because we say if we are working for sustainability, we must walk the talk. Similarly, we join companies, big companies, as a joint CSR partner. And we are giving talks to people on how to use technology responsibly and safely. And as a result, if some people want to buy, whether it's a worker or thing, we also have programs where we sell it at cost. So we may say give it to them at even 100 rupees. So our mission and vision statement is that we want to touch the lives of 100 million people in the next 2 years. And each of the people listening on to this, and all of you, we want you to be brand ambassadors to see that this is possible. So it is affordable according to me. And of course, we are doing more research and more this thing, and we are taking on a slew of other products. So we like to think of ourselves as a health tech company. So like I told you, we are doing an immunity enhancer. We've talked about the gadget disinfectant, which is taking care of viruses, including COVID, so that you don't get it through your phones. And many other products are being researched right now. And that's the journey we want to take, to make health affordable for all in very simple, non-intrusive ways.
Wonderful, sir. I think, your entire approach to healthcare and the use of communication as in waveforms and frequencies in order to aid that is truly innovative. And I think the purpose of the business and what you have narrated as part of your vision and mission is entirely in sound resonance with the principles of business strategy, which is sustainable. And I think in terms of what you have said about BRSR also, you are ahead of times in terms of how you're implementing it. And this is very, very encouraging for us, particularly for those who are in the field of management and management education, that such forward-thinking principles are getting brought in. So the next question is, this is very interesting space, Environics. Now, if there are potential entrepreneurs who are there in the audience or who'd like to look at this when they see the recording, what are the kind of other opportunities which exist in the Environics space which you would advise potential entrepreneurs to do research on and then take up?
So I'm glad that you asked this, because I wanted to speak about this and I missed it in my thing. But we've just touched the tip of the iceberg, and we've taken one route, and we've taken one kind of a problem, which is electrosmog. Within this itself, we were estimating that today we are a 20 crore company. If we are able to reach 0.5% customers, because everybody is a customer. Everybody lives in a house, everybody works somewhere, everybody uses not one gadget but multiple gadgets. The projection is that by 2030, each person will be surrounded by 15 gadgets at any given time. So that with that kind of an opportunity, we are already looking at 5 years on our business being a 3,000 crore business at least, even if we take 0.5% of certain parts of the world. So there is an opportunity of people partnering us as independent, because we are looking at ourselves not necessarily like a prime seller, but like a technology company, like an Intel for healthcare. So we will empower people, we will train them, we will happy to have franchisees, we are happy to have independent entrepreneurs, we are happy to fund research into certain areas of healthcare if people. So from R&D, we have a very strong R&D inclination. So we are ready to fund R&D. We are ready to fund entrepreneurs in things which we feel can have a resonance with what we are doing, which is pretty wide. And like say, suppose somebody is putting an app, all these benefits that we talk about, and somebody says we can make a cheap app which along with your products you can give and people can measure their health parameters themselves. That's an opportunity. So we have, and we can train people for rendering the service. Like in Dubai recently, we've kind of had an inverted model where we give the service. So we said initially for 6 months, 1 year, you employ people, we'll work with your people. We will correct about 10, 20 establishments. Your people will learn on the job. So right now it will be a 75-25 revenue model where we get 75. But in 1 year, when your people are trained, we'll flip it. So we'll just be a QC, and after 10 establishments, our person will see that the quality assurance is there. So there are many, many opportunities, and anybody who's looking at a business opportunity, we can't do this alone. So we need as many young and bright people who can outthink us, outperform us, aid us to be. So it's I mean, we can welcome thousands of people, and we are a fairly cash rich company right now, so there's no problem of funding or anything like that.
Fantastic, sir. I think this sounds like a blue ocean. And you have just narrated one segment of it, which where you have done quite a bit of work, which is related to electro smog. So I am wondering, no, what else can be there if a lot of people, right thinking people with the capabilities can apply their mind to this. So the last question in this cluster is, do you see any potential long-term risks in the environic space? And what can be done to mitigate them?
So the risks are already there. The telecom companies are in denial. The governments get a lot of revenue from telecom companies, so they don't uh, are not as mindful of the health risks of technology as they should be. So, but we are not saying that don't use technology. We are only saying use it safely. When somebody else is not listening, if the telecom companies themselves did something about it, we didn't need to do anything. So we are looking at it more as a societal prism. So risks will always be there. There will be competition. So we have to completely keep doing R&D to make our products cheaper, to disrupt our own technology. So the risk is somebody else is disrupting. So maybe we'll disrupt it ourselves.
Wonderful, sir. I think the more we talk about it, the more opportunities are getting seen, and the whole thing is becoming far bigger. And it's also a question of then, how do we act and then aggregate and build on the opportunity and convert them into real value in terms of the benefit of health that people see year by year. Thank you, sir. We come to the end of this cluster. I hand it back to Professor Sudhakar Rao.
Great, sir. It's very, very interesting. And yes, it is unfolding many things in front of us in terms of not only opportunities, but also in terms of the way we are completely unmindful of the dangers and the risks that we are getting into in our daily life with our practices, with our lifestyle, with our pace and urge for comfort and convenience. Everything put together, I think we are just walking into danger zones which are just lurking around the corner for us. I will, in the context of what we are discussing, I will pose the next question, sir. What will be the adverse effects on students? Because these days, especially majority of the students are learning online. So online classes, they are attending through smartphones. So what will be the adverse effects on the students?
Yeah, they are more at risk because their screen time has increased, and they with the work from home, things like that. So that's all the more reason why they have to be a little safe. So they must use radiation or emissions are a game of distance. So you have to maintain adequate distance to safeguard yourself. You have to get away from your gadgets. If you're using, like suppose I'm talking on this Zoom thing for 1 hour or whatever, then after that I have to switch off all. I don't have to go again and watch TV or do something. So we have to look at the total screen time, of course, and we can use all these safety things that we are talking about. They will partly mitigate the problem.
Great. So these tips of taking a break from the devices and managing your overall screen time and maintaining the distance from the devices to the extent possible. Yes, it began with raising the consciousness, and then there are certain well-researched methodologies that you have talked about. Sir, but how do we improve the health and well-being in terms of creating education and awareness? What focus should be there on creating awareness about all these things?
About the electronic thing. So
Yeah, one is about the harmful effects of staying closer to the electronic gadgets. That is known to the people when we are talking to them. But at a national level, at a country level, how awareness on these things should be taken up
So
at a
one of the
structured level.
things which we should take up as a national crusade is because 5G is going to come, and 5G is in gigahertz. So heat value, it's about 300 times more than 4G. So everybody thinks 2G, 3G, 4G, it's like a linear succession, but it's not. And it was in US, it was used by riot police to disperse mobs. That is the kind of heat that you're talking about. So at the national level, one of the things which we must immediately advocate is, yes, use 5G. You want it for faster transmission, faster data exchange, whatever, but don't do it wirelessly. Do it with the fiber. We do it with the optical fiber. Do it underground. Like you have a LAN connection. A mobile doesn't really require 5G. Maybe in one movie, instead of one movie downloading certain time, you'll download 10 movies, but one movie will still take you 2.5 hours to see. 2 hours. So why do you want to download 10 movies in 10 seconds? So mobile doesn't need 5G. Your more sophisticated data exchange things which require, you create a LAN for that. So at a national level, if we want to safeguard our future generation and our flora and fauna, we should look at this kind of a thing, that 5G should not be wirelessly transmitted. So that is the biggest thing I would say. Instead of doing small bits here and there, if we can do this, we would have done a great service.
Great. Have 5G, but have the data transmission happening not wirelessly, but through a LAN.
Yes.
That's a very important point and takeaway for us. And mobiles do not require 5G. And yes, it looks so simple and practical to understand that. But there is a craze for having 5G application for everything and every device. So that is where we fall into the trap. So, associated question one of the members has asked is, how is e-pollution different from electrosmog?
It's the same thing really.
Okay,
Two different terms, but
okay. What is the role to be played by consumers, the role played by the consumers to address, minimize this e-pollution of mobiles and especially electronic gadgets?
so the thing is that you use as little gadgets as possible, and you use it only when absolutely necessary. So be more with nature, be more with, it's about work life balance, it's about what you do for entertainment, whether you play sports or whether you're going to binge watch serials or so many things. So basically, it's about the choices that we make, and we should make sensible choices so that our hearing is not impaired, our eyesight is not going bad. I find today in the hospital, when we research with the hospitals, that people who are working in these IT centers and things like that, because their job is 8 hours just to put on the thing, that the maximum people between the age of 30 or 40 are hearing impaired. And
Oh,
a lot of people can't, their reproductive systems are being this, because the heat is generated, it is spoiling. Your people are keeping their phones in their pocket. So that is making, either it can affect your reproductive systems, or it can give you, if you're older, things like prostate and things like that.
this is much more startling what you have just revealed. continuous exposure to these harmful radiations is resulting in damaging or disturbing the reproductive health system. I mean, that's a major revelation.
It's
And
very dangerous for pregnant women, for
yeah,
children also, because their blood-brain barrier is much thinner. All this has been researched, it's all known.
right, right, right. Good. I'm sure all the participants are making a note of these important points that are coming out of the conversation. It is extremely important. So there is one more question, which uh, is geopathic radiation, for which scientific name of Vastu dosh? I mean, is Vastu dosh geopathic radiation related?
In the modern lexicon, geopathic radiation is not spoken about as far as Vastu dosh is concerned. But Vastu word is, the meaning of Vastu, if you translate in English, is energy. Vastu is matter, and Vastu is energy that permeates matter. So actually, in the ancient understanding, Vastu was not only to a building science. It was an environmental science, how the sun moves, how the moon moves, how the tides do, what are the ground energies. So today, what is the understanding, what we classify as Vastu, is only 10% of what we do. 90% is to do with ground energies and various other things. So we have boiled it down to frequencies and wavelengths. So it is theory agnostic. So in the present thing, you may have a Vastu perfect house which might have bad energies. And you may have a Vastu imperfect house which may have very good energies, because there are compensations elsewhere.
Already we see some participants asking us, how do we get in touch with Mr. Ajay Poddar? So that's the impact I'm trying to relay and report while we are conversing.
So I
Yes,
can I can put my website on the chat.
yes. We will also share with them all the
Yeah,
participants' address and email IDs with us. We can
yeah.
also share with them. Your website is also, I think, displayed during the slides. We can bring it back also towards the end of the conversation. So one more question is how the concept of Environics can play a significant role in Industry 4.0 from industrial perspective.
So we do a lot of work in industry. Like I said, we've done all the refineries, we've done 20 steel plants, we've done 3 airports, Hyderabad, Bombay, and part of Delhi airport. So the point is that we can, industry, it is very important that if we take this in the planning stage, so it can be done in the planning stage or at the corrections or one, because sometimes with the modern requirements you can't compromise. If there's an underground water stream going, you can't say that I will not have a modular layout. So they can be rectified at the plinth level. At the ground energies can all be rectified at the plinth level and later, which we do for a lot of industries. So these are all national resources, and if they are used optimally, and if accidents don't take place and breakdowns don't take place, that's that's the ideal thing. So it has to go with industry 4.0.
Yes. Fantastic. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. One last question in this cluster before we move to the next is how to be mentally healthy. And do you have any program for students that can provide consultation? How to be mentally healthy?
See, mental health is a function of stress. And many times we don't know why we are stressed. Somebody dies, we get over it after 12 days. But there are small things which irritate us for years. So basically, there is, of course, we have certain programs which we do with an overall health. It's because I don't believe that physical, mental, emotional, and they are inseparable. So we know that 90% of diseases are psychosomatic, and there is a connection. So when we talk about the body as a vibration, so we are right now beginning some research with one of the major hospital chains to treat the body with vibration. So, like when you say that you want to relax somebody's stress, you hear some music or you hear sounds with certain vibration. So, that will relax you mentally. So, there are external aids, there are things which you can do externally, and there are things which people have to understand themselves. So, counseling, there is no one size fit all. Somebody understands some kind of counseling. So, we would rather go with the technology part of it. How we can solve mental health, because we are not psychologists or something like that. So, we would like to stick to the domain where we can make a difference.
Right, very interesting. I think the mental health, physical health, and the emotional well-being are all inseparable. And you would like to focus on providing solutions based on technology, based on research, how we can tackle these things, because we treat body and mind, everything together as a field of vibrations. And then accordingly, the solutions will be provided. Great, sir. The entire response to this cluster and even the previous one is about making sensible choices towards a healthy and well-being lifestyle that you would like to have. So I think that is the summary of what we have conversed just now. With this, I'll request Professor Prasad to start the next cluster. Professor Prasad.
Thank you, Professor Rao. So the more we get into this, the Vastu and the Vastu, the energy pervading matter, I think, it's coming back to the very fundamentals of quantum physics and Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. And I think a lot of what you're saying in one manner is where you are trying to address it through waveforms is absolutely on the spot when you look at this particular framework. So I think it's very fascinating, and surely it has a very long way to go, given that these theories have not been utilized to the extent that they should have compared to material and Newtonian physics. So there is one question in this cluster that I'll pick up. The rest have been addressed by your responses to the other questions. And this is today technology has moved, emerging technologies like artificial intelligence, IoT, blockchain. How are you using these technologies in your progress, sir, for Environics?
We are yet to use them to a great extent, because we are ourselves still trying to understand. But one of the things that we would look at it going forward is to put all our data into AI, which will give us certain responses or certain what could be the solutions to certain A, B, C, X, Y, Z problem. So we have a fair amount of data, and the idea is now to, going forward with more of our customers, enable us to get much more data, which we put into the AI learning.
Thank you, sir. I think you have suggested what is the next step that you plan to do, and I'm sure when you start it, there'll be a lot of things which will come up, associated things which will come up.
Yes.
With that, I hand it back to Professor Rao.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Professor Prasad. What we'll now do is there is one or two questions that we would like to raise as we received from the participants. We talked briefly about awareness. How can Environics awareness be fostered, and what kind of awareness campaigns and solution marketing do you advise? This is the question, sir.
Sorry, I lost you in between.
How can Environics awareness be fostered? What kind of awareness campaigns and solution marketing do you advise?
So we have offered to various companies that when we are now doing an intervention, we have also started a rental model or a continuous engagement model, I'd like to call, where every 3 months we do some activity, we give talks in those establishments on how to use technology responsibly. There are videos which we are putting on general health, on how to improve your health with simple traditional methods and things like that, and what is the scientific basis of that. So going forward, we'd like to do much more of that, because ultimately the end objective is to keep people healthy.
Right, sir. So you will continue with your regular talks and videos in all these establishments and organizations where
Yes.
it matters most, and you will continue to push or foster these awareness
Yeah,
campaigns on a
also,
regular.
also, also through social media.
Yeah.
So many of my videos have organically they found about 50,000 views, and recently I'd put on something with of using dry ginger to use the alkalinity to so that has already garnered about 7-8 lakh views. So that's the way forward, I guess.
Yes. Yes. Interesting. So there is another interesting question that is popping up. Technology does not go backward, but it adapts. How can we balance environmental and health hazards to be in step with technology?
First, we have to see what is the part of the technology which is useful. Technology should not be used for the sake of technology. It is like, you have a drug approval and you use a drug for 10 years and it's administered to millions of people and then you ban it. So similarly, we can't be wiser after the event. We have to be wiser before the event. So before the technology is introduced, there is no kind of approval for a technology today. It's only a license. License does not involve the health impact. It doesn't have any clinical trial. It doesn't have any study. That is what is important. That's how we have to use technology. We have to put people center stage. We can't put people like cattle for the sake of commerce.
Interesting. So I think it is calling for those principles of keeping people at the center stage, people-oriented technology or technology with human face, rather than for the sake of commerce. Try and expose these humans to the hazards of technology. I think that's a very important point that has come about. Uh, so interestingly, our audience has been asking questions which are not directly related to the e-smog or directly related to the radiations, but they're also asking about how do we go for truly greening education. I mean, the concept of green education or greening the education process itself is one question that has been asked by our participants. Any pointers on that, sir?
See, I don't know what this green is become a very popular word. So it means different things to different people. But the only thing I would say in education is we have to not discard everything. See, today what has happened is we think that the West is God. So our traditional knowledge, we have a 5,000-year-old tradition. Let's not throw it into the junkyard. There is a whole lot of green living, the way our houses were built, the way we lived, our sanitation habits. We used to fold our hands. We wouldn't shake our hands. We would do so many things. If we look at about having hot food, you know many things about doing arti, about, so that is basically to align the meridians of your body. So if we must examine, and we must examine the merits of that traditional technology and understand why. So that education has to first begin by the educators understanding what were our practices, what was our learning, what is the relevance of that. So in the true form, I would say that there was a lot of green practices and green education or whatever you call it, which was already there. Let's try to first rediscover it. Then we'll go and look at some of the new things.
Fantastic. I think on this note, we come to the end of a very interesting session on what is going to be useful to all of us every moment, every single day on this topic of environics, its applications for health and well-being. Very well said, sir. I think we don't have to junk that more than 5,000-year-old traditions that we have. We need to reinvent, rediscover, and see what is useful for us, and then get into new stuff before you junk what is already with you. I think that's a very nice takeaway and suggestion from your side. Apart from the opening talk that you have delivered, where you have very nicely covered about the business principles that you maintain, is that the cost cannot be more than 20% of what it sells. So I think everything in terms of purpose is set there with that principle when you do business. And I'm sure your compliance with BRSR reporting itself is a higher standard of compliance for oneself in the organization, and everything else flows from these principles. You have also helped us understand the sleeping patterns in terms of how to keep oneself healthy and how to be more conscious about these radiations, these electrosmog, and natural negative energy that we get from Earth. All these things put together is actually creating, and based on your research, not just based on the gut feel, but it is based on research. Research will come into our conversation and our discussion when we have to take the conventional wisdom head on, and that's what has happened. I'm sure the reason why you have taken from 1989 to 2000 and 2007 when you commercially launched, that 18 years of research, realization, and revelation has given you a greater strength, and you are on a stronger footing before you handle people, organizations with all kinds of solutions that you have come up with.
It's still going on.
It's still going on.
With more years, you discover that you know how little you know.
Correct.
So it's not that we know much more now. We know less. More to know.
Great. Great, especially when Vastu has become, as you mentioned in your own words, it is a game of fear and fortune rather than balancing energies and balancing the frequencies and wavelengths. So yes, the struggle will continue, the fight will continue. Our race with the conventional wisdom will always continue, but not everything that has come through traditions is bad. I think we need to study, research, and then take, as you in your own language, sensible choices to be made for improving our health and well-being. So these are very, very interesting points, sir. And I'm sure all our members who have joined today have benefited immensely from knowing those answers to the questions that they have raised. I want to thank on behalf of everyone profusely for providing this time and value that you've added for the whole conversation. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Enjoyed the interaction. Thank you.
Same here, sir. So ladies and gentlemen, while we thank our esteemed guest who is with us on this very interesting topic, I would like to remind you that next week again at Friday, 7:30 p.m., we are going to meet with yet another interesting leader and a very interesting topic to cover. So that is on January 28th at 7:30. We will meet again. Do take care. The third wave is actually raising its head, and we all have to take COVID appropriate measures. And third wave is said to be spreading faster, but less virulent. Whatever it is, I think it makes sense to take care and stay indoors and not actually take the third wave head on. Let's not do that. Let's lie low and survive this and look forward to having a better day once the third wave is over. So ladies and gentlemen, we'll meet you next week. Till then, do take care. Thank you all. Thanks for joining.